Have you ever stuck in doing the same tasks over and over again? And a lot of times we missed communications about important payment reminders and kids' school communications, which are buried in a big pile of email. And also, we are juggling between different systems and programs to do a simple task done. If that is what you are going through, then there is a smarter way of doing things in a more simpler and faster way than ever. In today's world, everyone must be using some kind of an automation tool in their professional and personal life. But if you add AI into that mix, that becomes even more faster, smarter, and powerful. n8n is a fantastic tool which a lot of people are talking about today. So if we understand the foundational building blocks of n8n framework, then it'll be easy for us to get the best out of the n8n tool to benefit in our professional and personal life. There are a lot of videos on YouTube about n8n, but I also thought of creating a more organized way of a playlist which covers the step by step from basics to more advanced level so that anybody who doesn't have any experience about automation tools can easily follow this tutorial one by one. The first playlist is called n8n Basics, and it has 6 videos. And the first video is called n8n UI Navigation, and the second video is Core Fundamentals of the n8n Framework, and the third video is Basic Data Structure, and then the fourth video is Basic Data Flow Control, and then the fifth video is Testing and Debugging, and then the last one is the exception handling. So with these 6 sections, we are going to pretty much cover all the fundamentals of any automation tool, but this one is specific to n8n. But the concepts remain same if we try to use any other automation tools. The second playlist is n8n Advanced. So in this playlist, we have 7 videos, and the first one is the more advanced nodes in n8n, and then the second video is more complex data flows in n8n. The third one is the sub workflows. And then fourth one is handling files. How do we process files? And then the fifth one is concurrent executions of workflow. And the sixth one is backup and restore. And the last 7th one is how do we install n8n and upgrade on our local machine. So these are all the advanced video playlists which we are planning to publish. So please subscribe to our channel to keep getting the notifications as and when we publish the videos. So if we go through all this 6 plus 7, total 13 videos, you are pretty much good to create more advanced workflows and automations using n8n. Let's get started with the first topic, which is n8n's UI navigation. Before we get started with the n8n navigation, let's get into the different flavors of n8n, how you access n8n. There are 2 ways you can access n8n. The first method is n8n Cloud, which is available readily, so you don't need to install anything. You can just sign up for the n8n, which has a free trial version for 30 days, I think. And then you can try all these things practically hands-on in n8n Cloud without any hassles, right? The second version is the self-hosted version where you need to install n8n in any of your local machine or any of the virtual private cloud like AWS or Hostinger or anywhere. That is the self-hosted version, which requires some work to be done before you get it installed and get started with n8n. So for this demo, I'm going to use the self-hosted version of my n8n. But for you, if you want to follow along, you can very well start with n8n Cloud version to make it easy for you. When you get into n8n UI, there are 3 basic simple things we need to understand from the UI perspective. The first thing is the side menu, and then the second thing is the top menu, and then the third thing is the canvas, right? So these are all the main areas we are going to focus from an n8n perspective. And now let's get into the n8n UI and look into the menus and how to navigate through them. So when you first log in into the n8n UI, this is what you see. And this is the first sidebar menu, which you see. There are 5 important tabs, which are the key tabs for n8n on the overview page, which is the first one is the workflow, where all our workflows, whatever we are going to create, get stored. And the second one is very critical. This is the credentials, where we store all the API keys for any AI providers like Gemini, Claude, or OpenAI, stuffs like that get stored here. This API keys are totally encrypted, so nobody gets to see the actual value. Once we store it, it gets encrypted and stored within our n8n instance. Then execution is very important. Whenever we execute a workflow, all the executions, we can see it here. So when we can open up that execution and see which steps has been processed and what are the data passed from one step to another step and all the details, we can look into this execution tab, which is very interesting. So we can see a live flow of data from one step to another step. And the variables, this is a kind of a enterprise version. So if you self-host it or the basic plan doesn't have variables, but if you take enterprise version, then you will get to use variables, which we can define variables and then use it across different workflows if needed. That is variables. And then this one is something pretty new, and this is called data table, which is like a simple SQL table, right? Built within n8n. So this can be used for temporarily storing data like conversations or simple data for processing the list of customers or anything like that. We can store it here within this data table very much. So that is data tables. So these are all the 5 main tabs which comes with n8n as part of the overview menu. But if you go to the personal, you get to see the same things like workflows, credentials, executions, and data table. But this one, when you are sharing n8n with multiple users, under the personal tab, you get to only see our workflows. But if you are an administrator, if you go to the overview, you get to see all the workflows. Whoever is building, you can see all the workflows in there on the overview page. But under personal, you get to see only the workflows, what you create, and the credentials, what you are creating, stuff like that, and those workflows, executions, and data tables, right? So it's just more of the person who logged in, and you can create and organize your workflows in this space. But on the overview section, you get to see everybody's workflow and stuff like that. So that's what the difference between these two things. But it's more or less the same tabs you see in this workflow, right? So that the shared with you is something like, if somebody wanted to share any workflow which they are building, they can share it with you with using your email ID. And then you get to see in this section, shared with you section. So, but right now, currently, I don't have anything shared with me. Anything could be shared, right? So we can share a workflow or a credential with somebody else that then they can use and try, run it and execute it and stuff like that, And this chat is the beta version. That's something new as part of the version 2.0 n8n. This chat is something really cool because this simulates a chat GPT kind of an experience within n8n. But once you configure some of the models here, any of the models like Google Gemini or anything credentials, then we can use that credentials and select a model and then use it as a chat box, right? Simple chat box, right? The more interesting part here is the personal agents here. The personal agents, you can build your own agent using those models which you configured with all the credentials, right? And then you can build a workflow agent and a personal agent, right? So workflow agent is kind of a simple n8n workflow with an agentic capability, and the agents like just you build along an agent with the knowledge base and stuff like that. The important menu which we wanted to talk about is this templates, right? So the templates are pretty interesting. The power of n8n is there are a lot of people who are building templates, and we don't need to create anything from scratch. So we can pretty much take a template and then use it. There are a lot of free templates available, paid templates available. n8n itself provides a lot of curated templates. So pretty much we can take any existing template and bootstrap our workflow faster. All we need to do is just configure the credentials and any data connections between them. Once you do that, that workflow is completely executable. That's the power of templates. With that, we covered the sidebar menu. So now let's get into the personal space and start with a new workflow, right? So if we click on create new workflow, now we can see a new menu on the top. So that is the top menu, right? So the top menu, as you see here, we are under personal folder, and then this is the workflow name, right? So we can name our workflow as our first workflow. And then we can add some tags here, like, agent, or which, is it an MCP agent, or is it an agent, or, it's all like a text-based tagging mechanism just used to filter and find the workflows if there are multiple workflows, organize our workflows in a proper way using these tags. And then in the center, there are three tabs, which we will come later. And then on the top, there is a publish button. So this is something new on version 2.0, right? Before that, it used to be the save button alone. Now they have publish button, and then they enabled auto saving, right? So whenever we add any nodes or any connections, anything on the workflow inside this canvas, it automatically gets saved. But once it gets saved, we need to click publish before we execute the workflow so that the changes will get effect in that execution, right? And then the next one is the history. This one is like whenever we make changes to our workflow, the history of the changes getting logged here. So we can go through the history and see what got changed in different versions of the workflow. This is the design level changes, right, of the workflow. And then this last one, it is kind of an additional menu. So as you see here, so if you want to do some changes to the descriptions, or if you want to copy the workflow, duplicate the workflow, or even download the workflow, or rename the name here, whatever is that, the rename the workflow, anything like kind of an additional things, and also some settings which are specific to the workflow, you can do that. To important thing to note here is this import, right? So you can import a workflow from a file or from an URL, okay, which is provided by any public or any repository or anything like that. You can import an URL directly, which has a JSON file for the workflow, or you can download that JSON file and then upload it into that canvas as a file, right? And that's what it is. And then lastly, you can archive this workflow, so which gets archived inside our same instance, and then we can get it back whenever we want. Okay, so that's an additional menu right there. And then now, coming back to the main section, which is the canvas, right? So the canvas is this box right here where it's all dotted grid with grids with dotted lines. So this is the main canvas area. The main canvas area has three main tabs, right? The first tab is the editor tab, which is a very important tab because most of the time we live in this tab where we define or design our workflows. So that is the main tab, right? So that is the main space we live most of the time. And this executions, again, it is the same thing for this specific workflow. For this specific workflow, what are all the different executions? We saw an execution outside and the overview level also. That is for all the workflows. Any workflow gets executed, it's logged there. But this execution is specific for this workflow alone. And we can see the history of all the executions here, then get into the specific steps and then find out what is executed, what is the data, and stuff like that, right? And then the last one is pretty important and more advanced thing. This is evaluations, right? If you are building a production ready workflow, this step is very important because we need to curate some data to run evaluations against the workflow so that whenever we do changes to the workflow, we have the curated data, we run it through the evaluations to make sure the workflow is not breaking. This kind of a testing, right? Testing our workflow to make sure it is not breaking anything, right? So that is this evaluation step. And another important thing which we want to note here at the bottom, this is like a zoom control for the workflow because sometimes workflows really gets bigger. So in that time, we want to zoom out, zoom in, and then fit to window and stuff like that. And then the next main menu on this canvas is this four buttons right here. This is the primary button where we can find out all the nodes like AI nodes, trigger nodes, action nodes, which we'll talk about it in later videos. But this is the one-stop shop for finding all the nodes to add it into our workflow, right? So you can search nodes, like for example, if I want to search for Google, So all the Google related nodes, either it could be an action node, trigger node, anything you can find here and then go inside there and then drag it inside our workflow and use it, right? So that is this node. And then the search, it's kind of a it's kind of a spotlight search in our Mac, right? So you can find any commands or any navigation. It is used for finding all the navigation stuffs easily and find search and stuff like that, right? So for example, if I want to go to templates, I can see templates and then find the templates and then go to templates right away from here. So that is this search. And this one is a sticky note. The third button is a sticky note. The sticky note is like, it's a notes, like a, when we are doing Java coding, we write documentation. So the same way, when we are defining the workflow, if you want to document something, these notes are really helpful to kind of use it as a guide. Or if we build a workflow and then give it to somebody else, then probably we write some notes and documentations as part of this note. And the next button is the properties, right? And the last one is the node parameter. So when you add nodes into the canvas, if you want to see what are the parameters configured on the node, if you click on it, it'll show you all the parameters for the node. Since this is our local install, you don't see another button, but if you are a cloud version, you will see another AI assist button here, which is very important and interesting as well, because you can use that as a AI chat box to build workflows using the chat box. So you can ask the AI to build a workflow for a specific requirement, and it will automatically build the workflow for you, right? So that's pretty much it. So with that, I think we come to an end of the UI navigation. And if you know this level of all the UI navigation, I think you are pretty much sure where to go for what to look for in the UI and how to navigate through this UI for building faster workflows. In the next video, we'll start with a small workflow and then we'll go from there. So please don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for the series of videos which we are going to make for n8n. And thank you, and see you on our next video of n8n Basics. Bye.